Hello and welcome to Camera Review. Today we have the announcement of Sony A9 Mark II, and it is a new version of a camera that has existed for 2.5 years. Those of you who have remembered the Sony A9, it was a camera that was supposed to revolutionize this world of sports photography and fast action and wildlife. And Sony had a major impact on bringing a camera like this with such features to make a big change in the market. And then what we happened is that these cameras did not become too popular because the DSLR world still ruled the way that the photography was done. So Sony A9 with all its capabilities started making its way into the market, making a mirrorless camera become a popular camera as for professional use. And then their main feature was their autofocus. The autofocus was very fast, and they had major upgrades along the way to improve the autofocus capabilities like the eye tracking. Now what we are seeing is a repackaged A9 with just about the same specs, but there are some changes, and those are the ones I want to talk about and how they apply to real professional applications. First of all, we're going to see that this Sony A9 Mark II has got the same design features or the design styling as the Sony A7R Mark IV. And you're going to see the design is just about identical, with the button layouts almost identical. We have on the side again the dial that is going to allow you to change from autofocus like continuous and all the other things, but those things could have very well been put into the menu itself, and that could have been a more of a design that you could adapt anything you want in there, but that was not the choice that was made, and the functions and the looks have been pretty much kept in that way, similar to the Sony A9. And for that functionality, I think there are things that still could be improved or could be changed to make it look better. Again, the design, because of its changes, made it a better camera to hold in the hand, and the joystick layout is just a better improvement. And we're also seeing that the design and grip button layouts, as they change, becomes more versatile for professional photographers, and I think that is an improvement on itself. The most important improvement comes in the form of image stabilization. Now we have 5.5 stops of stabilization that is going to allow you to remove any of the blur that might happen from camera shakes and other applications, and the fact that you are going to get very consistent results without all those missed shots, and the fact that you are combining with an eye focus that is going to give you very sharp images. I think that is a major improvement in terms of being able to deliver those things. As far as the camera itself is concerned, we know that Sony A9 has just about the same upgrades, which we're going to talk about with their firmware. So we're going to talk about the differences, but for now, think about the 5.5 image stabilization, as that image stabilization is going to allow you to get sharper images, and when the action is especially fast, that is a major advantage. And that's what the Sony market has been trying to get into and capture those people who are professionals. And if you watch their videos, they have got about 4 or 5 photographers that do sports action, and they're talking about how good this camera is. And those are the things that we're going to talk about in a little bit. First, let's continue about what this camera still offers. Now, what is important is the fact that they've incorporated some Wi-Fi features that's going to allow you to transport the images that you have captured onto your smartphone or to a system where you're going to be able to send these out a lot faster to the agencies or places that need these photographs as soon as possible. Also, you're going to see that this has got what they call the voice memo, so you can record some voice text information in there that is going to help for example, the editor to know what that image is about or who that person is in that image. I think that is also a nice thing for people who are going to use it for professional reasons. Now, good thing about this camera is that it's got very fast shutter speed, that you can get 20 frames per second. It's got very silent system where you can shoot almost in silent mode, and that is, I think, a very nice thing that this camera offers, because that's going to help a lot of times from not having to sound distract from the process of taking the photographs. What's also nice is that it has got anti-flicker capture, which means that it's going to not have flickers in between shots, and you're going to be able to see in real time what you're shooting. I think that is also a nice thing for those people who are actually very concentrated on capturing the image without having to have blackouts. And blackouts have been, of course, the customary thing that we had with DSLR type of cameras. Now we're seeing the mirrorless taking an advantage of this by providing images that are almost like a movie that you are going to be able to capture everything that you see, and you kind of capture it without having a shutter closing time, having to block the image from what you're being able to capture. So in that respect, I think it is very, very important. Also, the fact that the refresh rate on the OLED screen is very fast, so you're not getting all those flickerings, and that is very, very important. Another important thing that we should look into is the fact that you can get about 10 frames per second with the mechanical shutter. The camera is designed to operate in electronic shutter mode, which I think is the way that this camera should be used, because the new improved design of this shutter mechanism is going to guaranteed for about 500,000 shutter clicks. So that means it's going to be more reliable on a mechanical sense, but using it on the electronic means that there are going to be no moving parts, and that makes the camera virtually indestructible. On top of that, if you add the fact that this has got better weather sealing and that it's going to avoid the dust and moisture from getting into the camera elements, it's going to make this camera last a lot longer. It's going to be more durable, and the fact that it is designed with a new grip makes it easier to hold, especially for those professional photographers that need to have a good hold of the camera when they're actually capturing images. Of course, we always want to have backups as professionals of the images. So now we have the USH2 memory card slot, so you're going to be able to put two cards, be able to copy them onto each other, and to make sure that you have spare space that you're going to be able to use and allow those faster data transfers to occur instead of having to rely on the older technology. And I think that should have been done in the first place, but we're seeing it done here. I think that's a welcome improvement overall. Also introduced what they call the vertical grip. That's going to allow you to put more power into your camera, so that you're going to have longer times for shooting, and you're going to be able to have much improved functionality in terms of being able to hold the camera and have a vertical grip or a standard holding horizontal position. And that, if you compare it to this DSLR type of cameras, was the preferred way of doing it, because you could go from the one position to the other without having to, have this kind of a awkward thing of having very unusual dimensions. So this kind of creates almost a square kind of hold system, so you can go from one side to the other without having to lose your grip on it. So let's talk about what is the same as a Sony A9 with this new version. You got the same 20 frames per second. You got 60 calculations done per second for autofocus. That's going to be wonderful. And it's nice that they have that functionality and throughout their older cameras, because that's going to make their cameras still sellable. And that is still being offered in the market as an option for a cheaper alternative, so as Sony A9. Also, you're going to see that there is still going to be no blackouts. That is a wonderful improvement in terms of being able to see what you're shooting. And that is still valid for the Sony A9 and Sony A9 Mark II. And then you got the silent shooting, which is wonderful. When it comes to autofocus, we've got 93% of the screen covered, so that you're going to get just about everything in proper autofocus functionality. That is a very good thing for a camera that has probably the best autofocus system in the market. And that still goes for the Sony A9, Sony A9 Mark II. And then we have real-time tracking, which is wonderful. You got the eye tracking, which is wonderful as well. These are things that makes this camera system very, very useful for capturing things where you have the subject moving at a fast speed, but you got the eye pupil autofocus that's going to deliver great results no matter what. And then now they have also the animal eye tracking, which means that you're going to be able to shoot wildlife and still get the animal's eye in focus. That is, I think, something that a lot of other camera companies need to improve in terms of autofocus. So Sony has been leading the pack in terms of being able to offer something like this. Now, the sad part is there is no improvement in the number of megapixels. It's the same sensor as the Sony A9, so 2.5 years have gone by, no improvement in terms of that. But that technology is still a very good technology, so we're seeing a 24 megapixel sensor that we have had, the backlit one, still being in the market and still being implemented into the system. We are also seeing that it has the same type of processor, which is a Beyond X, and of course we have the electronic viewfinder that is very, very good. It still shows the same. There is no changes in terms of video. I would have expected them to provide better video capabilities, but you're still getting the 4K 30p, which is again not the kind of thing that I would have wanted. I would have wanted to have a little bit of slow motion capabilities, and of course DCI technology instead of the UHD, which is the smaller, not the true 4K version of it. But still, for delivering results as a professional camera, I think this is the one that they wanted to say, this is for professional photography. You're gonna be able to offer video, but that is all you're going to do, and you're not gonna be able to offer anything except what you see, what you get, and no slow motion, nothing except what you see. So in that respect, I think Sony has done no changes in terms of sensor technology, no changes in terms of autofocus, no changes in terms of the internal dynamics of it. What we are seeing is basically a cosmetic change on the exterior of the camera, which makes it kind of easier for people to hold it and use it. And that may mean a lot for people who are using this for professional reasons, because if you do not have a good grip and if you don't have some of the functionalities that you see in the DSLR cameras with their proper layout of buttons and everything else, that would have been a trouble thing. But what we're seeing is Sony smarting. I'm saying, you know what, I think I should work on the external looks of it, the styling, and keep the internals the same and offer it as an alternative to the market and still charge the premium price. And then what I can do is drop the Sony A9's price a little bit for those people who want to, save a few dollars here and there to get the cheaper version. And that, I think, is a very valid of marketing. I think Sony is incredibly good with their marketing plans. They have done great with their consumer electronics, and now they're doing it with their camera systems that is offering something very unique to the market. And that means that in the future, what we might see is like Canons and Nikons and everybody else trying to go into mirrorless for their sports action and other kind of photography. I mean, the announcement of Nikon's D6 is not made any breakthrough. It hasn't really stirred up the market, but Sony A9 has made a big impact, and now people with professional use are considering whether they should switch to a system that has very fast autofocus system that has very good capabilities. The only thing that I think that was lacking in the design was the way that it was laid out, and now we're seeing a better grip and better layout of the buttons, and it's going to make a lot of people looking into these kind of cameras for their professional use. Now, one other thing that I need to mention is that the top of the camera, which I think nobody has really mentioned, is got this hot shoe where you can put the newly designed mics that is going to work in conjunction with the camera to capture the audio in much better, crispier forms. Also, you're going to be able to record from the hot shoe images and be able to get those things in terms of usability. And I think that is nice because it becomes a more versatile, more functional camera, and these are things that have not been really offered as an alternative for in other camera systems. In all the times, what we had to do is we had to put these wirings and plug into the ports on the sides of the camera. Now what you can have is the mounting of the microphone on top of the camera without having to have wires running around it. So that's going to make the rigs a lot smaller, and it's going to make it easier for recording audio for professionals. And I think they had the professional in mind, thinking that they shouldn't have to have all these cables running around if they're going to do photography and then do video. Because if you look at it, the people who do video they need to have these complex setups that is not designed usually for photography. You want to be mobile, you want to be able to have things, but if you have just a microphone on top That's not going to make a big difference in terms of usability as a photography camera, yet you are going to be able to capture good audio if you need it. And that, I think, is what the market has been demanding. I hope that a lot of other companies try to do this as well, put the kind of a system where the audio could be recorded from the hot shoe directly into the camera's audio system, and that is going to allow the audio to be matched with directly with the video, and that is going to allow the camera to be a more versatile camera. So I hope this has been informative. What I'm going to do is I'm going to provide links down below where you can look at the specs, where to order them, how to get them, and more information about how this camera is going to perform. We're going to do a test on it as soon as we get our hands on it to really examine their uses. I think that overall the image quality is not going to be any different than Sony A9. It's not going to be any different than what we have been seeing with this terms of this camera's prior version. What we are going to see is the functionality in terms of the way the design has changed. That is going to give us a little bit of an advantage in terms of being able to hold it more comfortably in our hands. As far as the data transfers, the voice memos, and all those little finicky things that are somewhat not important for anybody who's not doing sports photography or reportage, that is you're going to capture something that is very, very fast and you need to transport it to that information to the headquarters or the agencies that are going to buy your images or your video. I think that what I'm thinking on this terms of is it's nice to have, but it's not absolutely necessary. The purpose and the whole reason why this camera still exists is to provide the best autofocus system in the market, very fast shutter speed, 20 frames. I think that is good enough to buy this camera as itself. And for those who are looking to upgrade from a DSLR to this, I think it's a wonderful transition because you're going to be able to use your lenses with adapters until you switch your lenses to probably Sony systems that they have come out with very, very good lenses for their customers. And I think they're going to be driving the market forward in terms of technology. And that technology is what defines the world of photography today. So I hope to see you in our next review. Thank you for watching.